Please welcome to the stage Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hello, thank you all very, very much. You know, thank you. So another thing that is working is the Clinton Foundation project, Too Small to Fail, which is our early education initiative. And we know that decades of research have shown us that the early years of a child's life are crucial to their mental, physical, and emotional development. In fact, we know that that's when most brain development in those first 5 years happens. So I could not be prouder that our program, Too Small to Fail, has launched nearly 40 local community-level campaigns across the country and 2 statewide campaigns in Michigan and New York, and has been at the forefront of innovation in early childhood support and learning. What it does is to work with caregivers and families in the spaces where they visit to help them read, talk, and sing to their babies and their toddlers. And more than 15 third-party independent evaluations have demonstrated that parents and caregivers talking, reading, and singing with their children is something that they're encouraged to do, and they actually do more of after Too Small to Fail engages with them. So I could not be, and our friends at the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy, along with the United Way of Pennsylvania, who are here with me, have partnered for a new Clinton Global Initiative commitment to action. This commitment will support the language and literacy development of children across the state of Pennsylvania through 250 activities by December 2026. And thanks to planning grants from the Grable Foundation and the William Penn Foundation, who are also here with us today, they have designed a program that will train trusted messengers, people that parents go to for support, like early childhood educators, pediatricians, faith leaders, home visitors, and more, to explain the value of early learning through activities like talking, reading, and singing. They'll also be transforming the spaces that families go, like city agency waiting rooms, or WIC clinics, or health centers, or laundromats, because 10 years ago, when we started Too Small to Fail, we kept looking for places that families gathered that would have time to engage with books, engage with each other, and we thought about laundromats, and the American Laundromat Association became our partner. And now in 600 laundromats across America, we have books, little mini libraries, places for people who are coming to wash and dry their clothes to actually spend that time interacting with their children. And it was thrilling when the Library of Congress actually won. The Library of Congress gave to the American Laundromat Association this year's Literacy Prize, because who would have thought that that would be a place where people could go to learn. So I want to invite our partners to join me. I think they are somewhere here, to thank them for extending this program to Pennsylvania. And now it's my incredible pleasure to welcome to the stage two creators who can talk about how stories can shape what we think, can change us at every age. The one and only Shonda Rhimes and the one and only Darren Walker. Well, by your response, you know who these two people are. And I have to tell you, it's a real thrill for me to be talking with both of them. Two people who I admire so much and who have, in each of his and her own ways, made such a difference in our country. And they know that stories have the power to change lives and change laws, whether it's the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the gay rights movement. I mean, you can go on and on. Stories have the power to get people to think differently about themselves and about each other. So I want to jump right into talking about what each of them sees as the power of stories, because if we can get good storytelling, good narratives about who we are as a people, maybe we can begin to kind of overcome some of our divides that set us against each other and prevent us from moving forward. So, Shonda, let me start with you, because you have often spoken about writing and developing stories that you wanted to see yourself when you were a young person, when you were growing up. And you know, you founded Shondaland, which obviously produces content across so many mediums, but you've also supported educational arts program at USC, at Dartmouth, at the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. Take us back a little bit in your growing up years. What is it you didn't see? What is it you decided to do to make sure that, you know, your children everywhere would be able to see reflections of who they are and what they could become?
You know, for me, one of the things I thought was interesting in watching television, it really was, I loved television, watched television, was I never saw anybody who seemed like me or my friends. I didn't see women who seemed like the women I know. I didn't see LGBTQ plus couples. I didn't see any of it. And to me, that felt really odd, because America is not all white men and women straight and going through the world. That's not how the country works. But it wasn't just that. I mean, I don't think I thought of it as consciously like making a statement or doing something purposefully. A lot of it was the idea that I wasn't ever going to write a story that didn't include me. You know, why would I write stories that don't include me? Everybody writes the stories that feel inclusive to them. And so I wrote a world that was like the world I knew, and was quite shocked to discover, frankly, in the very beginning, that that was considered rare and fresh and brave. It didn't make sense to me.
Well, part of the reason I think it was considered brave is because it was brave, because you were telling stories that had not been recognized before, and you created a connection with, in the case of TV viewers, who responded to that. And when you think about the audience that you've created, do you feel that you have, through the stories you've told, created more opportunities for people to not only see themselves, but to try to tell stories in a way that will bring, you know, more of us to a kind of common humanity in terms of understanding where we are?
Absolutely. I think early on, during Grey's Anatomy, like in the first early years, they did a study with Kaiser that showed that more people got their medical knowledge from watching our show than they did from their own doctors, which made me feel a huge sense of responsibility. But it also made me understand, like, the reach that we were having. And so to me, all of our stories, I try to make them both a window and a mirror. You know, a window into somebody else's world and a mirror that reflects back at you who you are. And that creates this sense of empathy that I'm hopeful that we're doing. You know, that's really it. If you spend time watching Scandal, you probably spent more time with Olivia Pope than you did with your friends each week. And that's true, and it creates a sense of intimacy. You're there for all of her intimate moments and all of her, so you have a sense of empathy. You're knowing a person differently. And I thought that was important.
Well, I was a faithful viewer of those shows, and all I wanted was to, you know, dress like Kerry Washington. Olivia Pope became the fashion icon that, you know, we all looked for. But it really did open up a kind of horizon that people didn't even know they were missing, I think it's fair to say. You know, Darren, you're not only the president of the Ford Foundation, one of the great philanthropic institutions in the world, but you have your own story. I mean, you have told the story of your life in a way that has helped you to connect with so many audiences. I've heard you in a room of corporate executives say, you know, I was one of the very first children enrolled in Head Start. And I want to tell you how important that experience was to me and why you, even though you run a big company, should care about that. So you've told your own story, but then you've enabled so many artists to tell their stories, whether it's through the visual arts or music or other kinds of stories. And I was particularly touched that you partnered with Ava DuVernay's film Origin, which came out of the great Isabel Wilkerson book. And so you've expanded even your reach of storytelling. Why was that important for you as, you know, an executive of a major foundation?
Thank you, Secretary Clinton, and it is an honor to be here with two of my sheroes, really remarkable women. It is truly great, and my good sister Shonda, it's great to be here. So let me just say, you know, the brilliance of Shonda and Ava, first, is that the genius of Black women, which has been contested since Phyllis Wheatley wrote that poem, has arrested me in my imagination as president of the Ford Foundation. And I have had the privilege of knowing people like Shonda and working to support creatives like Ava, because their genius can't be denied. It can't be erased. It can't be questioned. And this is the thing that is so amazing about genius. And so as a foundation, I believe we should be investing in that. And we should be investing particularly in the stories of those whose contributions to our culture have been ignored, overlooked, erased, and not respected. And so the idea of using the resources of the Ford Foundation to ensure that we're lifting up these extraordinary, often women. I mean, I think about Dawn Porter's work, who you know well, and Dawn's amazing arc over time. And, you know, she wasn't a documentarian. She was a lawyer at ABC, but she had an idea of a film. And the work of the Ford Foundation is to say, we will invest in that idea. Even though people are telling you, Black woman, that you can't do this, you can do this. And we just need to use our resources to support you to be you. And I think that's the work of a foundation that is committed to social justice, is telling stories. And when you say, these stories are right in front of people, they are unable to see them. And this is the genius of Shonda. Her stories demanded that people release themselves from their bias, their prejudice. Like, oh, there can be a genius black doctor. Oh, there can be, I mean, when I think about Bridgerton, I mean, I am absolutely obsessed. Obsessed, because it is exactly what great entertainment is supposed to do. It is being able to be released and have your imagination just go there. Because growing up as a queer little black boy, I loved fairy stories, obviously. I loved fairy stories. But they never had people who looked like us. My imagination I couldn't see. I mean, because white supremacy has so affected my psyche that I couldn't see a black person.
You can't be what you can't see. You really can't.
Wow, I don't even know how to follow up. But you know, the whole issue of racial justice, social justice, is something both of you are passionate about. And you know, Shonda, I know you supported the Emmett Till Interpretive Center recently. How does your storytelling impact your advocacy, and maybe vice versa? How does your advocacy impact your storytelling? Well,
you know, the Emmett Till Foundation, what happened there was a case of somebody else's writing impacting me and impacting my activism. I read this amazing article in The Atlantic by Wright Thompson about the barn where Emmett Till was killed. And they were trying to buy it because they didn't want anybody turning into a shrine of white supremacy. They didn't want it demolished, and they wanted to respect it. And the article that he wrote, and he has a book that just came out today called The Barn, the article that he wrote was so compelling that it made me call up my philanthropy team and say, let's help them buy that barn. And it was such a riveting story, and it really tore at my heartstrings. And I think that's what great journalism can do, and I think that's what great narratives can do. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned great journalism, because you know, it really is important to recognize the power that great journalism can have. And the stories that can be told about what's actually happening in the world right now that should impact us, make us think, make us do something. And I want to ask you, Darren, you know, the theme of CGI this year is what's working. I mean, we're tired of people, you know, basically saying nothing's working or being kind of, you know, downtrodden because everything is so hard. But there are a lot of things that are working. And you and the foundation have done a great job of trying to identify people who are doing something that needs to be amplified and brought to scale. But in the area of storytelling, do you have any examples of people or, you know, artistic projects that you think have made an impact?
Well, there's no doubt that, so the Ford Foundation 20 plus years ago was funding showrunners to include storylines on LGBTQ, on women, on sexual violence, because this is the reality. And the reason we did that is because in the early days of the Ford Foundation, we believed that research and data could change the minds of the public, of policymakers especially. And there was an experiment that a group of foundations invested in, led by the California Endowment, on work on black boys, young black men in gangs in LA. And the visual was like that Michael Jackson video where the face changes and they become different parts of the world. So they started with young black men sitting, and the group of respondents who were suburban whites in Orange County, when it became uncomfortable or unbelievable, they would click and it would. As the visuals were transformed into professionals, into exemplars, people couldn't see that. right? They couldn't see it. And so much of what we have to do is we can't, by simply running an experiment or a randomized controlled trial on how to improve the lives of young black men and to show outcomes that have an impact, and then presume that policymakers will want to implement that. Because we know that's actually not the case. There's all kind of evidence of what works in social policy that is sitting on the shelves, uninvested in, because there are policymakers who you cannot convince. There is not enough data. Now, when they see something through the lens of entertainment, when they, the impact of Ellen DeGeneres' show for queer people in America, because the reality was middle-class white people in Kansas could relate to her. She was their daughter, she was their neighbor, she was their grandchild. And the thing that people don't want to be told is you're going to be estranged from your child. You are not going to be able to, and so to be able to use media to help move people and touch people, this is the power. We live in a media-driven culture, and yes, we need data, yes, we need facts, but sometimes data and facts are not enough. And you've got to show people what it looks like and that it actually is a good thing to be a gay neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to tell you how absolutely important what Darren just said is, and how long it took me to learn that. Because I came from the school of, let's tell people the facts. Let's explain to them why climate change is going to destroy these communities in how many years with how high sea level needs to be.
And look at your work at CDF and all the hard work that you guys did to convince that investing in these young children, and look at how hard, the amount of research that you and Marian Wright Edelman did over all those years, and yet it's still so hard.
It still is so hard, and now we're living though in not just a media-driven environment, but new forms of media. I remember this so well. One of the shows that I watched as a very young girl was The Harvest of Shame, about the way migrants were treated in the United States. And it came out like in 1960. So I was like 13, I think. And I will never forget watching that. I had no idea. But because we had 3 television networks, you could get at least a third of the country watching whatever was on one of them. So it was like destination viewing. And so you would watch this show. It had a profound effect because people couldn't believe their eyes. They couldn't believe the stories. Now it is so much harder to get attention, and especially on social justice issues, on economic justice issues. So Shonda, how do we get people's attention? Now, what you've done literally changes people's understanding, but if we're going to try to convince people to take some form of action and their attention is splintered across so many different platforms, is it even possible anymore?
I definitely think it's still possible. I always believe that if you can entertain people, you can teach them anything. Because if they're highly entertained, they will sit there and watch you talk about all the ways Planned Parenthood has been damaged. Or they'll sit there and listen to all the ways, literacy is important. But they have to be entertained. And if you can place an emotional narrative on any issue, if you can put a face to it, if you can create a character for it, if you can show a struggle that inspires, you can really grab someone's attention. And things now don't happen the way we thought they were. It's not now like 40 million people are watching the same thing. But what happens now is 10 million people may be watching something, and those 10 million people make video clips and TikToks and put those out, and that draws a whole bunch of other people in. I've watched it happen time and again. They become sort of their own storytellers of your stories. And that's exciting because it means that they're reaching people you were never going to reach.
And Darren, when you think now about the challenges that we face as a country, what stories do you think we're still not telling? What stories do we have to hear about each other, about ourselves, to try to, deal with all of the divisiveness that we confront?
I think we need to hear stories that people, certainly elites like many of us, are completely disassociated from. So because of the work of the foundation, I visit rural communities. There is devastation in this country in rural communities that people living in places like Manhattan and West Hollywood have no idea of. And literally, people in small towns with one stoplight walking around like zombies in like the bad days on Market Street in San Francisco from opiates and that epidemic and what it has done. And there are stories that we need to hear to understand why there is so much pain and anguish in this country, because we aren't experiencing that. We have a great life. And yet, far too many Americans are feeling left out and left behind because of the scourge of inequality that we have in our society. And therefore, it's no surprise that our politics are what they are. It's actually no surprise at all to me that we find ourselves in this situation. And so I'm interested in those stories. I'm interested in the stories of, I want to hear about why white men are so pissed off. Now, I know a lot of people are like, I don't need to hear that story. I actually think I do need to hear that story, because I have hypotheses, but my own hypotheses are informed by my growing up in the South and my own bias as a result of making presumptions about the kind of people I encountered, who I see today, and still in my mind have that as the guy in the pickup truck who called me the N-word as he drove by. Okay, let that go. Something else is happening, and I think we need to hear those stories.
That is so important. I was meeting with some people here at CGI talking about, some of the future areas that we need to really focus on, and it was exactly as Darren said. Something is going on with boys and men in our country. Yes. And it's not only the United States. There are signs of it in other parts of the world as well. And it is, deeply disturbing because, young men are not finishing school at the rate they used to. They're not going to college. They're not graduating from college. They often are not getting jobs in the formal economy. And this does cut across all racial and ethnic groups. There's something happening with young men's ideas about their future, what's possible for them. So how would you write about that, Shonda? How would you try to answer?
Right now, Shonda. Come up with that show, Shonda.
But how would you even begin to storyboard something that would explore what Darren's talking about?
Well, first of all, I think what Darren's talking about is fascinating. I spend a lot of time trying to understand people who are exactly the opposite of me, mainly because it makes your writing better, but also because I'm honestly worried and confused about what's going on, and sometimes I really can't come up with a thing. But I think a lot of it has to do with who is doing the storytelling. Now, historically, yes, white men were the people doing the storytelling, but poor white men weren't the people who were doing storytelling. People who had no education weren't the people doing the storytelling. And that's a huge swath of our population, people who read at a third grade level, who don't have a real source of income or who are food insecure. They need to be people who are also telling stories. And I think that that's vital, truly, because you'll reach people where they are.
And it is the stories that we have told about that population have been completely degrading and
damaging,
damaging to their identity, and has created a narrative about them that is now front and center in our politics. And so shame on us as elites, and shame on us at the Ford Foundation when we now have a rural program. But initially, we didn't. When I became president, we didn't have a rural program. How are we going to talk about inequality in America and not talk about rural America? And so we were, shame on us for being behind, taking 4 years to create a program on rural America. And because, engaging rural white people and immigrants, because the populations, the demography is changing in some parts of rural America as well. But that whole swath, as you say, Shonda, that whole swath is so rich, and the possibilities and the necessity, we cannot ignore at our own peril what is going on in these communities.
Well, right before we end, I want to flip the script, because in the last 2 weeks, we've had an example of storytelling that was targeted against Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. Made up stories that were very harmful, that produced a reaction. And the stories were not told by poor rural people. They were told by 2 people running for president and vice president. And there was no shame about them being totally false stories. And the consequences for that community have been, very devastating. Schools closed, bomb threats, all of that. It goes, though, to show you the power of a story that is told repetitively for an agenda that is political or partisan. And how do you rebut that? Because, once the story's out there, it's very hard to put it back in the box.
And it's not just the story, it's who they're telling the story to. That audience doesn't, as we said, they're not generally being spoken to. They are being spoken to. And so those stories really matter to them, and they believe them because nobody else is speaking to them.
And the storytellers know this isn't just a story. This is a story of the ominous arrival of Black people and what that will mean for the disintegration and the tranquility of a white community. And so what this really is about is the continued potency of race and the idea that if Black people arrive in your community, it will be a bad thing for your community. And so that, to me, is the takeaway, is regrettably, I had hoped that as a nation, that narrative would lose its potency over time. But clearly I was wrong.
But for better or worse, it speaks to the potency of storytelling. That's right. A good story captures your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your desires, and that's what that story did for a lot of people. And it's what I do for a living, is try to tell stories that capture hopes and dreams and desires and fears, but if done wrong, that's what happens.
Well, I think that proves why we wanted to have this session, because storytelling is powerful. Good stories, uplifting, hopeful stories, negative, fearful, hateful stories. And we just have to decide which story we're going to tell. And then we have to do a better job of making sure we're good at that telling of the story, and that the story actually does not just impact minds, but hearts, and helps to change people's view. I just can't thank Shonda and Darren enough for being here with us.
Please take your seats. Our next panel will begin shortly. Please welcome to the stage President William Jefferson Clinton and Ziv Aviram.
Please be seated. As we have seen time and again over the last couple of days, one of the key ingredients to actually building a better, more equitable, more sustainable future is a strong, free, independent press. Quality journalism can shine a light on our greatest challenges, lift up solutions that are making a difference, and inspire others to take action. That is especially true when it comes to climate change. In the face of powerful forces that deny its reality or spread misinformation, we need trusted voices to actually explain the science, to share other stories of how the climate is affecting everyday lives, and to show what we can do about it. And that's why I'm very glad that this fellow standing behind me, my friend Ziv Aviram, is launching the inaugural Aviram Award for Climate Journalism. We have worked with him before on climate action, including launching a new innovative fund called EcoBridge at CGI last year. He has been a consistent, passionate, committed advocate for doing the right things by our planet and our shared future. And I'm very grateful we were able to launch this new award from the CGI stage. I'd also like to say, without stealing any of Ziv's thunder, that I am particularly grateful that this year's honoree is Suzanne Rust, who has been particularly relentless in her coverage of climate change and other environmental issues for 2 decades now. As you'll see when she comes out, it may be hard to believe she's been working for 2 decades on anything, but she has been. And her work embodies the best of her field and what it means for the rest of us. Certainly, she has set a high bar for the future recipients of this award. So thank you, Ziv, and I turn it over to you to say a few words and present the award.
President Clinton, distinguished guests, good afternoon. Mr. President, what an honor to stand here with you on this prominent stage. Your unwavering commitment to building a better world is an inspiration to us all. And your personal presence here emphasizes the importance of climate journalism. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, journalism can never be silent. That's its greatest virtue and its greatest fault. It must speak and speak immediately, while the echoes of wonder the claims of triumphs, and the sign of horror are still in the air. This powerful quote from Henry Grunwald, best known as Time magazine's editor-in-chief, perfectly captures the essence of this award. Today, more than ever, journalism must raise its voice in response to humanity's greatest challenge, climate change. As we face increasingly devastating wildfires, hurricanes, and extreme weather events, journalists play a crucial role. They are the storytellers who bridge the gap between scientific data and public understanding, transforming cold facts into urgent call for action. And the time to act is now. Mr. President, CGI's slogan, "Taking Action Together," embodies the spirit of collaboration that drives meaningful change. As you mentioned, last year at CGI, we both announced our joint climate tech fund, EcoBridge. EcoBridge is committed to investing in broad range of cutting-edge technologies that hold a great potential in the fight against climate change. However, technology alone is not enough. This battle requires a holistic approach, one that engages every sector of society. We must raise public awareness, encourage policymakers to act, educate our children, and promote sustainable practices at every level. When people truly understand the severity of the climate crisis, they will demand action, and they will demand it now. Politicians will have no choice but to pick climate as their agenda, enact meaningful government policies, and fight for a better, greener future. A shift in thought leads to a shift in behavior. Individuals will vote with their feet and demand more sustainable consumption, forcing manufacturers to choose greener solutions. With this strong sense of urgency and responsibility, I'm proud to announce the Rodham Award from Climate Journalism. This award, which we intend to have annually, reflects our commitment to supporting climate journalism and keeping this issue in the public eye. And now, for the moment we have gathered here today. The Rodham Award winner this year has shown remarkable dedication in raising awareness about climate change. As a tireless investigative journalist for the LA Times, she embodies the power of journalism to drive change and uncover the truth at the heart of the climate crisis. I'm privileged to honor Suzanne Rust. Please join us. Congratulations, Suzanne. You are a true climate warrior. Your recent work, among many others, on deep-sea mining and its impact on ecosystem, along with your efforts to eliminate single-use plastics, highlights exactly why we are so dedicated to supporting climate journalism. Thank you for your contribution to our planet. I have no doubt that your efforts will continue to inspire and drive meaningful action in the fight against climate change. I believe climate change must be one of the defining issues of our time. It should be presented in every conversation, in every stage, and in every political debate. The media has a crucial role in doing so. Let's ensure a better tomorrow for us and for all future generations. After all, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Thank you. This is for you.
Thank you.
President Clinton.
Oh gosh, I'm honored and humbled. Thank you, President Clinton. Thank you, Mr. Avram, and the Avram family here and the foundation. I really am honored. And I was told I have 2 minutes. So as a storyteller, I have to indulge myself and tell you all a story. 5 years ago, I had the extraordinary privilege of getting sent to the Marshall Islands to report on both the devastating atomic legacy we, the United States, saddled on this Pacific island nation, as well as the new and compounding devastation our addiction to fossil fuels is leaving. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. I'm actually gonna have to put on my glasses. Excuse me. I went to a place called the Bikini Atoll, one of the world's most remote island chains, and where between 1946 and 1958, the United States detonated 24 atomic bombs, obliterating wide swaths of the atoll's coral reef and contaminating the surrounding islands with radioactive decay. But here's the thing, because of that terrible pollution, people have pretty much left it alone. It's a no-go zone. And in 2018, a group of Stanford University scientists went and surveyed the atoll's marine life. What they found was extraordinary resilience and beauty. Where other Pacific atolls have been destroyed by overfishing, boating, runoff, et cetera, the Bikini Atoll had been left pretty much alone to regrow and flourish. As one researcher noted, the reef had abundant, big, healthy coral communities, corals that were larger than cars scattered about the edges of the hydrogen bomb craters. He said the visual and emotional impact of encountering the rebirth was stunning. But 5 years later, when I went, things had changed. Carolyn Cole, who's here, shout out to her, an LA Times staff photographer and dear friend, and I jumped into the waters in the Bikini Atoll hoping to see these VW-sized corals. It was a hot day. My scuba computer was noting 93 degrees at the surface and 90 at about 15 feet down. In water that should have been crystal azure blue, we saw clouds of thick brown algae, a suffocating bloom triggered by the heat. We saw dead fish everywhere, and days later, the bloom ceased. We saw what a few years of incessant heat had played on the reef. There were dead corals everywhere. The reef that the Stanford University's researchers had witnessed just a few years before was gone. I'd been reporting on climate change for roughly 2 decades at this point, but it had never hit me so squarely as it did that day, that there is no place on the planet any longer that isn't impacted by what we have done. It was a gut punch. As many of you know, the legacy news media is struggling. There are mass layoffs happening in newsrooms around the country, including at the Los Angeles Times. Newspapers are folding, and reporters at most outlets aren't paid very well. We don't have job security, and in the case of climate reporters, we cover a topic that, not to sound overly dramatic, but it's traumatic. I spend my days reporting on diseased animals, wildfires, the vanishing of vast ecosystems, disease outbreaks, droughts, withered crops, inundated farmland, beached whales, starving and vanishing populations of marine life. It takes a toll. You can ask my husband. There are days I wake up and wonder if I can keep doing this at all. It is hard to bear witness to a hurting and struggling planet. But this award is a sign and symbol of hope for reporters everywhere that the work we do is valued, that it is meaningful, that institutions such as the Avram Foundation, with help with CGI in partnership, that they see us and want us to continue this work. They want reporters to continue providing witness to the changes that are taking place, to hold those who continue to threaten our planet and its future accountable, and to hopefully provide the public with the information they need to make choices about what kind of car or food or even clothing to buy at the store and who they want to elect when they go to the ballot box. I am humbled and honored, and I am hopeful that such recognition will keep reporters like me in this business, that it will inspire newspapers such as the Times, to continue investing in climate reporting, which it has done despite its rocky financials. And mostly that it will inspire younger and aspiring reporters to sign on, to take the task of keeping the public informed and knowledgeable about the most important topic of our and our planet's time. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Ashley Lashley, the Ashley Lashley Foundation.
Hello, everyone. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Deborah Fowler of History on Race, Artis Stevens of Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, Ignatius Bulongo of Healthy Learners, and Nalini Saligram of Arogia World. Firstly, let me say, as a young 25-year-old Barbadian, it's a pleasure to be on the CGI stage. And did you know there are more than 2.4 billion people under the age of 18 years old globally? That's over 2.4 billion people who have the potential to change the world. But first, they need us to show up for them and provide them with education, resources, and the opportunity to thrive. I am proud to be here to help announce new Clinton global initiatives, commitments to action, and share updates on ones already in progress. These new specific and measurable projects and programs are showing us what's working to support young people around the world. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America is committing to empowering 30,000 youth to achieve upward economic mobility through its Big Futures Workplace Mentoring Program. The program will focus on high-growth sectors like tech, healthcare, and financial services, and make mentorship programs available for youth from low-income backgrounds and rural communities. History on Race is committing to expanding access to high-quality primary source LGBTQ+, inclusive secondary and post-secondary history learning materials for 1.5 million students in the United States of America. They will work with partners to create content to be used by classroom teachers to increase the visibility and representation of the LGBTQ+ community and its history to help close gaps in history and civics education. Arogia World is committing to improve the health of school-age children in India through its Healthy Schools program. Over the next 4 years, 5 million children will participate in the program, which focuses on increasing physical activity and nutrition education alongside diabetes awareness. With India's high rates of diabetes, this commitment really aims to reverse that trend and have long-standing impacts on the next generation's health, longevity, and well-being. Similarly, Healthy Learners has exceeded targets of their 2023 commitment to expand its schools program in Zambia. To date, the program is in 479 schools and serves more than 847,000 children. Healthy Learners is working in the Ministry of Health to support school health services as critical to enhancing healthcare access, preventing illness, and supporting overall student advancement. And finally, again, I am proud to share that since announcing our commitment last year, the Ashley Lashley Foundation has successfully launched our EcoFit Youth Program at our EcoFit fundraising fair in Barbados in April. We aimed at introducing over 5,000 school students across 30 schools in Barbados to climate and environmental issues specific to the 5R concept of reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose, and refuse, as well as the importance of outdoor activity for maintaining physical health and mental health. I first started advocating for climate and health literacy when I was just 16 years old. And I am where I am today, not just because of my own drive and persistence, and some may say ambition too, but also because of the decision makers and organizations who gave me a seat at the table. And now I want to do the same for others. And these commitments to actions are doing their part to set future generations of young people and youth advocates up for success. I hope they will inspire you to join them and initiate your own work to support the world's youth, because our collective future depends on it. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Frankie Miranda, Hispanic Federation.
Hello, everybody. Buenas tardes. How are you? How is this room feeling? Great? I mean, I have to confess, I thought that it was a mistake when they have Shonda, they have Darren, Secretary Clinton, President Clinton, all these people. I say, like, them? Me? Oh my God, but here I am. So we're going to have an incredible continuation of this program. And now I have the honor to introduce my new BFF. We met backstage, but now we're fast friends now. It is my honor to bring to the stage for keynote remarks the CEO of the New York Public Library, Tony Marks.
Hello, everybody. So let's be clear. New York, important. Library, the biggest on the planet, super important. Public. Public goods are going away, and we are not. We're here talking around the theme of creating stories for a better tomorrow, because we are all moved by stories, as you heard in previous discussions, way more than the abstract numbers and policy discussions. Let's note, this conversation is happening during Banned Books Week. People's stories and lives are being denied across this country. There is a rising tide of book bans, not just an attack on literature, but on the very idea of free thought and expression. Voices silenced, stories lost, particularly people of color and LGBTQ stories being targeted very clearly. The people who are doing this are doing it because they know stories and books are powerful. That's why they're after them. And it's why we have to defend those stories. The right for everyone to see in the literature themselves, to learn about others, so that we can live with ourselves and with each other. My parents, as young children, fled Germany as Jews when the books started to be banned. Somehow they understood what that meant. In my 20s, I went to work in South Africa, arriving in 1984 in a country that was nearing civil war. And apartheid had made sure that the majority of people's stories were denied, that their lives and rights were being denied. Key amongst that was ensuring that the majority of people would be or undereducated under apartheid. I went to work, thanks to the Ford Foundation, Darren Walker's amazing organization, for the leading anti-apartheid education nonprofit in the country. And under their leadership, we created a college for over 1,000 students that over the next 10 years proved wrong the assumptions of apartheid. And those 1,000 students, after 12 to 15 years of purposeful bad education, 1 year of quality education, turned it around to restore the momentum and change their lives so that they could contribute to their community. It was a lesson and an experience that changed my life forever. It proved to me the power of education, the power of the human mind to withstand the worst that you can throw at it. And apartheid certainly tried to do that. Everyone has the capacity to learn, and everyone should be respected and have the right to exercise that. That is the key of the idea of the Enlightenment, and it is what is being challenged in our country today. In this moment of history, where if we can't sit together, help each other, if we can't learn about each other's stories, if we can't respect each other, then we will not have a democracy, no matter what the institutional arrangements look like. Our political systems are failing at delivering what they need to, and the kids are losing hope. But we can fight back, and we are, at the nation's largest library, at the libraries that are in every community. These are the places where people come together to learn and to understand one another. Libraries are about access to information, access to resources, access to opportunities, for all, for free. Because not everyone can afford that kind of access when it's charged. The democratization of information is crucial in fostering an informed citizenry, which is the foundation of any thriving democracy. So I'm going to urge you all to join this fight, the fight for the right of people to tell and hear their stories. I bet all of you spent important time in your childhood in your public library, in whatever community. Support your local libraries. Advocate for intellectual freedom and challenge book bans in our communities. It's unthinkable that this is happening in my country, in our country, but that is what is now happening. So we have to double down and encourage open dialogue around controversial topics. Libraries are not just repositories of books. They are vibrant community spaces that promote critical thinking and civic engagement. They are simply foundational. They are democracy's most powerful symbol and most practical expression. So let's tell the story together of reaffirming our commitment to core values of democracy, the basic freedom to read what you want and not let other people tell you what you can't read, what stories you can't hear, what you can't think about, for fear that their children will be influenced to think more broadly. We have to encourage everyone to think critically. It is as simple as that. Comes down to this. We need to create, unlock, and share the stories which foster, enable empathy and our collective humanity. All people deserve to see themselves in those stories and to tell their stories and to have others hear and learn about them. Please, please join me in this fight for our future.
Thank you so much, Tony. Please welcome to the stage commitment makers Holly Gordon, Samara Connery of the Sean Connery Foundation and Minister Glenys Hannah Martin of the Bahamas Ministry of Education.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am tremendously pleased, proud, and excited to announce the launch of a commitment to action that is fundamental to our way of life: every Bahamian swimming. The Bahamas is an archipelago of 700 islands where 95% of our territory is ocean. We are not a small island state, but rather a large ocean country. Our stunning beaches and vibrant marine life are not only the pride of our nation, but the foundation of our economy. Prime Minister Davis has spoken passionately over the past few years about our vulnerability to the impact of climate change, and also to the exciting potential of a future rooted in the blue economy. It is our duty, therefore, to prepare the next generation to fully engage with and thrive in this vision for the future of the Bahamas. Every Bahamian swimming is a crucial part of this mission. Swimming is essential to our national development. Currently, most Bahamians are not swimmers, yet 97% of Bahamians believe it is an essential life skill for their children. By ensuring that every student learns to swim, we are preparing our people to stay safe and healthy, embrace our natural resources, and navigate the challenges posed by our unique geography. Whether they grow businesses tied to the ocean, help safeguard our communities during climate events, or rise to international athletic stardom, we must equip them to succeed in a rapidly evolving local and global economy. Like all transformative endeavors, this initiative has only been made possible through the support of many hands. Heartfelt thanks to the Connery Foundation, the Fox Foundation, the Bahamas Aquatics Association, and the numerous nonprofits and companies that have stepped forward to support this important work. Their commitment is helping to make a real difference in the lives of our young people and make it even better in the Bahamas. This spring, for the 6th consecutive year, the Bahamas proudly brought home the highest number of swimming medals at the Carifta Games. The world should be on notice. Those splashes you hear are the sounds of future Olympians. I thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Holly Gordon, the Executive Director of the Sean Connery Foundation, and it is a true honor to stand with Minister Hannah Martin from the Department of Education of the Bahamas and Samara Connery today to announce the commitment that is deeply personal to Sean Connery's family. Every Bahamian Swimming is the first of its kind whole country initiative to teach swimming and basic water survival skills to the people of the Bahamas. The Sean Connery Foundation was created to make a difference in the two places that Sir Sean called home: Scotland, where he was born, and in the Bahamas, where he lived for over 30 years. Given Sean and his family's deep connection to Bahamian ocean waters, ocean health was a natural focus for our efforts. So you may be wondering, how did we get from ocean health to swimming? Let me tell you the story quickly. One of our first ever grants sent marine biology students from the University of the Bahamas on a research expedition. The report that came back was eye-opening. While the students had a life-changing experience, they couldn't participate in the ocean-based research because they didn't know how to swim. We realized that ocean conservation cannot truly take root if those training as ocean scientists lack the skills to swim in the open water. What's more, we began to understand that many Bahamians, as many as 90%, lack the swimming skills needed to save their own lives if faced with the rising waters of a hurricane. A threat that's all too real in a country made up of low-lying islands. In the era of climate change, the Bahamas faces more frequent and stronger storms, and swimming is truly a matter of life and death. Also important to the Connery family, swimming has a strong tie to gender equity. A survey commissioned by the foundation revealed that Bahamian women are 50% less confident in their swimming abilities than men, and also in their self-reported proficiency. We know that prioritizing women and girls in this initiative, we will create a ripple effect that engages whole families and accelerates generational change. And finally, this effort honors Sean Connery's legacy. What you may not know, that before becoming James Bond, Sean Connery worked as a lifeguard and actually taught his own sons to swim in the pools around London, much colder than the Bahamas. We're deeply grateful to CGI, the Bahamian government, and all of our partners for joining us in this life-saving initiative. Look out for those splashes.
Thank you so much. We're going to reset the stage for a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage, Frankie Miranda.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me well? Very good. I have the honor to close this session with an incredible panel discussion, and I'm so happy that all of you have stayed tied for this session. Please welcome actor and activist Madison Tavlin, Major Inc. founder Aloe Black, and Human Rights Campaign President Kelly Robinson. Hello, hello. I am so excited about this panel because of everything that we have heard today and the importance of storytelling and the way that they can shape opinions, policy, everything in our lives. I remember very well that growing up as a queer boy in Puerto Rico, there were no people like me being represented in any aspects of their lives. It was all about making fun of people like me. And I had to leave Puerto Rico in order to find a different narrative and finding a different way. And that is why it's so important, the work that these incredible activists are doing. I'm going to start with Kelly. Kelly, we have been running into each other, running around, doing a lot of noise and good trouble. And I promised you that we were going to have a sit down, we were going to chat, and here we are with a couple of hundred people. So this is our opportunity. So Kelly, your work at the Human Rights Campaign, you work to mobilize, educate, advance LGBTQ issues and rights. How has the media and storytelling advanced the movement, especially in humanizing and creating awareness for the community, for our communities?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, this work is personal. You know, I grew up Black and queer on the south side of Chicago. There's usually a Chicagoan that goes, woo, then. Okay, there you are. My wife is a first-generation daughter of Indian immigrants. We're married. We just bought our first house. We've got a 3-year-old son. Our lives would not be possible right now if it weren't for the power of storytelling, of declaring our humanity, of fighting for rights and laws in every space, from workplaces to schools to government, to make sure that we could be who we are. The Human Rights Campaign has been around for 40 years, advocating on behalf of the LGBTQ+ community. And let's be clear, 40 years ago, if you were out at work, you could be fired on the spot. But now there are more out and allied leaders than ever before. That's because of our storytelling. 40 years ago, if you had HIV, it was a death sentence. But now we're within arm's reach of ending the epidemic in our lifetime, in this generation, because of the power of stories. So this is one of those moments where I think we are experiencing a backlash, but it's important for us to lean in, to tell our stories, and also declare that we are here, we are queer, and we aren't going anywhere.
You're so right.
Exactly. And a follow-up for you, Kelly, is like, how do you see the recent attacks on LGBTQ rights, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion reflected in the culture globally? How is that, why is it important to not diminish the value of diverse stories and continue to invest and distribute them?
You know, the story of America is that progress has always been met with backlash. And Madison and I were talking backstage about the theme of this conference being what's working, right?
Yeah.
And storytelling is what's working. I mean, if you look back 25 years ago, 60% of the United States, people in the United States, oppose same-sex marriage. But now, 70% of Americans support same-sex marriage. And not only that, the Respect for Marriage Act is the law of the land. That happened because people committed to the work. And I loved that Shonda Rhimes and Darren Walker were up here talking about storytelling earlier and the power of what it looks like in media. I also have to give credit to companies and corporations. I mean, seeing that progress happen because Subaru started featuring lesbians when they were selling their cars, right? Because Absolute started to market to us. And right now, I think we're at such a pivotal moment where when you look at the future, 30% of Generation Z identify as a member of the LGBTQ+ community. We have $1.4 trillion of buying power in the United States alone. Supporting our community, advocating for equity and inclusion, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the best thing to do for your business. So look, I say this often, I would love people to love me and my family for who we are, but if you don't love me, you better at least respect me. And that's what this moment is about.
Amen. We are seeing in the past 10 years an incredible new wave of representation in the media. And every time I see a commercial and I see a glance of like 2 seconds in that cruise ship commercial and I see the biracial gay couple that are in the cruise, I say like, oh, I see them. But more and more we see the stories and the activists and the actors, and one of them is, of course, the incredible Madison. Welcome, Madison.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You are a big star on movies and television, and you have been talking to big executives and also school kids. Most recently, you participated in New York Fashion Week. on the Runway of Dreams, showcasing inclusive fashion, as well as starred in the award-winning I Assumed That I Can.
So maybe I will.
Yes. Have everybody seen here the campaign? It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So Madison, how do you see your work and advocacy expand representation for people with Down syndrome while also inspiring others to think and feel differently?
Well, the reaction to the campaign was so overwhelming. It's a reminder that representation is super important. We need more opportunities for disabled people to believe in ourselves, be comfortable in our own skin, and we all celebrate our differences and our voices to come alive. The campaign helped to change so many other people's perspectives about my community and stand up for what I believe in, especially people who don't know anyone with Down syndrome. Made people feel differently about how we view the community and themselves. It's all about building our confidence in ourselves.
Incredible. And by the way, I was talking to Madison before. She's an amazing actor, but also she can land a good joke on the screen.
Oh, I really can. And that's what I do best.
Yes. Alo, you are an incredible Grammy-nominated musician with multiple global hits. I love your bio on your website. You start by saying that you grew up dancing or listening to salsa, merengue, and cumbia. I said, that was like my household. So we see each other. You constantly utilize your platform and talents to support many issues, such as suicide prevention, social justice, ending malaria, and the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative. How do movements and social issues inspire your music? And what is the impact you have created and hope to create through mobilizing other artists and audiences to take action?
Wow, social movements and activism really inspires the stories that I tell. It's the way that I've committed to showing up as an artist with the platform that I have. I've been a mentee of many activists. One in particular is the late, great Harry Belafonte, who used his voice to impact society positively. And what I learned from him was to take advantage of these stories, take advantage of the stories from the activists, from the philanthropists, from the folks that are being serviced by nonprofit organizations. Transform those stories into song and distribute those to the people with your platform. So I've had the opportunity to work with the Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity to translate what they do in terms of awarding their laureates and seeing the amazing work that these people do. And make a song called Shine that I release and then I sing to amplify the work of the Aurora Prize. Or earlier on the stage was Artist Stevens from the Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, translating the story of mentorship and relationships and writing a song that I can use to amplify their work. And so I've gone in and met with multiple organizations, and I'm continuing to do this work, but I hope that what I can do is inspire in the way that Harry Belafonte inspired me, to inspire other artists to join in this practice, because we don't need an entire album of songs about my breakups and my heartache.
Well,
what I think would be really helpful is to, offer for my peers at least one song in their catalog of songs per year that is in honor, in service of humanity, in service of community, in service of the organizations that they recognize are doing amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The theme of this conference is what's working. So it's very easy. I was thinking before how easy it is to tell a story with bad facts and how easy is to tell, how difficult it is to tell a story with good facts. But we don't want to be carrying around the negativity. And as Secretary Clinton said, we want to know what's working. And my question for any one of you is, has there been a story or art form that has impacted you or the issues you have cared about?
So recently I was part of Runway of Dreams at New York Fashion Week. And I felt so empowered by seeing a lot of people with different disabilities, and I always say it's so much fun proving people wrong.
Yes.
Absolutely. I know. And it was a full circle moment for me because I was inspired by them, but also they were inspired by me and were role models that everyone was looking up to. And it felt so good being in that room with them. And always a reminder that we should all embrace all of our differences.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just check out the videos. The runway is fabulous with Madison and so many other models. It was really incredible. Thank you for doing that. Anything on, for example, Alo, that you would like to talk about, other ways, other means in which you feel inspired or that you feel that you can tell the stories?
I think it's really important to just be a vessel, be open to what the stories are that are coming to you and that you see in society. You know, I was lucky enough to work with the Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity and to meet Dr. Mukwege, who is the 2024 recipient of the Aurora Prize. And the work that he's doing in Congo to repair hearts, to repair women, to heal the community that is ravaged by war it's incredible. And the amount of years that he's been spending dedicating his life to healing these people who have been part of such a terrible fabric of war, that it really does inspire me to want to do more. And I feel like by writing a song like Shine, it helps to amplify not only his work, but the work of so many amazing humanitarians around the world. And that's, I think, how, as an artist, we can all show up, you know, is to find those stories, use those stories as fuel, and deliver them so that other people can be humbled by them, but also inspired to act.
Absolutely, and we need more of that. We were talking about the importance of the power of music and the power of entertainment and the power of these stories to change the world. We want more artists like you to be thinking like you. I know that we're running out of time, so I'm going to ask the final questions for the panel, and is what do you want people to live with in terms of how they can support and educate themselves through storytelling and the arts? What do you imagine as the future of inclusive storytelling?
To cast us in the roles like TV shows and movies and commercials. We should all have the same opportunities as anybody else here, not just if you have a disability or don't have a disability. I imagine a future where people are cast for opportunities because they are the best for that role, not because they have a disability. Cast me because I'm Madison Tevlin, not because I'm Madison Tevlin as a person with Down syndrome.
Because you're talented and you're fabulous. Thank you so much. Kelly.
You know, I think for me right now, the power of storytelling renews our hope and belief in what could be possible. You know, like for me, growing up as a Black queer kid, there are some things I never thought I could manifest in my life. I don't know what it's like to live without the weight of racism on my shoulders, the weight of sexism and homophobia. But stories allow me to believe something could be that I haven't seen, felt, or experienced before. And right now, when we're experiencing such a backlash on the progress that we've made, right now when there are horrific bills, particularly attacking our trans community, being passed all across this country, right now when the rhetoric from some of the most powerful voices in the land are targeting and attacking our youth, we have got to believe that something better and more powerful could be possible if we work together. And stories give us that ability to unify across differences and across space to make it so. You know, lately, I've gotten to see the power of storytelling firsthand when I travel across the country. I saw a trans kid and the look in their eyes when they saw themselves represented on TV for the very first time. I saw a lesbian couple say I do in front of their community and what that meant not only for them but for everyone else that was watching. The power of storytelling gives us the ability to transform our worlds and our lives in ways that we could never imagine be possible, but it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Alo.
I would just encourage for everyone to find within their community the organization that speaks to their heart, and find those stories and try to amplify those stories. really the work that the folks on the front ground and in the front lines do in nonprofit organizations within their communities is the real heroic work. As a storyteller, I feel like I've got the easiest lift. And so if you could join me in being part of that storytelling and encouraging the others in your community to be part of that storytelling, that would be amazing help to amplify the voices of the LGBTQ community, to amplify the voices of the disabled community, and all the other marginalized communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to close by just sharing a personal story. When I became involved with the Clinton Global Initiative was just right after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico. And right at that moment, we found that when local government collapsed and the federal government had a criminal response to the 3.4 million American citizens that happened to live in the island of Puerto Rico, it was our job to really tell the story of what happened there. And we had the most powerful office in the world, the White House, trying to neutralize and deny the thing that happened in Puerto Rico. So the power of storytelling also is to make sure that people don't forget and that we can mobilize. And if artists like Bad Bunny can take the 7-year mark of Hurricane Maria devastating Puerto Rico to make a song for people not to forget what happened there, it is really important, the power of artists, the storytellers, and for us to continue forging a better future. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you for everybody for staying with us, and have a good night. Thank you.
Our final main stage program starts at 4:45 p.m., featuring a performance by A.Y. Young, insights from Bill Gates, and closing remarks from President Clinton.
There's been a couple more that I've spent simply humbled by the void. And who did you think I was when you first met me moons ago? When I wanted to kiss you forever and maybe wanted to take it slow, take it take it Did I disappoint you? I'm pretty sure I did. You thought I was some kind of rock star. I was a nervous little kid, and I assumed you were someone I could lean myself upon. But with a blink of an eye, you were out the door, gone. So I stopped making those conclusions, thinking you could truly know someone. You peel a layer, find another. No, you're never really done. Who did I think you were when we danced in the setting sun? When you said that you'd love me forever, and I was getting ready to run, ready to run, ready to run. Who did I think I was as I narrowed in closer to the sun? And perhaps I'll feel like this forever. I'm always ready to run, ready to run.
find you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination. Though you may find from time to time complication. Bite your lip and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up. For peace you'll find into the steeple of beautiful people where there's only one kind. So hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme, so keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best.